All right. We are back at it, back in Kara's book corner.
3, 2, 1.
Another book video. It feels like it's been forever since I last filmed a book video because honestly, I just haven't been reading. Today, I am going to be talking about sci-fi books. I am not a sci-fi reader. I typically only read contemporary fiction and romance, but all of these books I would say are like level 1 sci-fi books. Beginner level, it's a good intro into sci-fi, dystopian novels. Those are the type of books I'm going to be talking about. If you're a sci-fi lover, these books may not be for you because none of them are like deep sci-fi. These are all realistic, in the future I could see this happening type of sci-fi novels. For me, that's about as sci-fi as I'm going to get. Without further ado, we will get right into it. These are in no particular order. I wouldn't say that I would recommend all of these books, and I'll get into that, but these are the sci-fi books that I've read. If you're interested in reading sci-fi, I didn't hate them. We are going to start with these two. It is Klara and the Sun and Never Let Me Go. I would say these books are a very good intro into sci-fi. I honestly didn't even realize that these were considered sci-fi until I looked at the Goodreads and I was like, oh, I guess it is considered sci-fi. Especially Klara and the Sun. I feel like that could literally be our future someday. Never Let Me Go, I feel like was a little more abstract for me. Let me talk about each of them individually. Klara and the Sun is about this, what they call artificial friend. I feel like it's very similar to AI, especially with the chat GPT going on right now. I feel like this is becoming more prevalent than ever. Basically, Klara is this AI type figure. If you're an artificial friend, you're basically just like in a store hoping a customer will come by and choose you. And typically the customers are kids and their parents. I feel like this book talks a lot about like what it means to be human, what it means to love, what it means to lose someone. This book talks about society, friendship, and what it means to be like a real human. I would definitely recommend this book. And this was honestly relatively easy to read for a sci-fi novel, like have very many new words, especially with the premise being like an artificial friend and artificial intelligence is becoming more and more prevalent in today's society. I think this book is going to be relatively easy to grasp. Rated this a 4.25 out of 5, would recommend. So Never Let Me Go, I rated the same. I rated this also a 4.25, but in my brain, I ranked this like just a little marginally better than Klara and the Sun. Again, like Klara and the Sun, I didn't realize this was sci-fi. I feel like this book had less abstract features about the book. Like this book was really based in reality, more or less. Still talked about the same types of things. It talked about friendship, love, loss, what it means to be human. Never Let Me Go is kind of like a coming of age story between childhood friends, figuring out the meaning of life, governing the new world. They're all told that they're special and they have this gift, and they're just trying to figure out what that means. I feel like this book left me feeling empty. I feel like most of the science fiction books I read leave me feeling empty for a little bit, and it leaves me like kind of questioning society and questioning the world, my world, and this book definitely had me doing that. This, again, I feel like was easily digestible, pretty easy to read. So if you're looking for like a good intro book to sci-fi, this will be one of them. Again, I would recommend this book, 4.25 out of 5. The next book is going to be one of the first books that I don't necessarily recommend, but I still read it. And that is This Is How You Lose the Time War. This book, I believe I rated like a 3 or 3.5. This book is cookie cutter sci-fi, but it's a cookie cutter sci-fi romance. If you have a wrinklier brain than I do, you probably will understand it a little more than I did, but with my smooth brain, I understood maybe 45% of this book. This book is very pretty, very nicely written. All the background building stuff went straight over my head. I guess it was too beautifully written, and I am just made for ugly writing, maybe. This Is How You Lose the Time War is about two opposing sides fighting this war. And that's honestly about all I can tell you. I don't know what's happening in the world. I don't know why it's happening. I don't know anything. I know nothing. And that applies to more than just this book. But this book is about two people fighting. It starts off with them being like enemies, and then it turns into a little something more. The letter writing in this is literally the only reason I continue to read this book, because genuinely, after the first couple of pages, I was like, I don't get what's going on here. But every letter I read, I was like, I kind of understand. I kind of like it. That's the only reason why I kept reading. All of the world building stuff, I don't get it. It's lost on me. It is a sci-fi book nonetheless. I would recommend this to someone if they're into sci-fi and feel like they can understand more of like the world building stuff than I can. The next book I will be discussing is this hefty book. This is Cloud Cuckoo Land. Again, another book I didn't really think was considered sci-fi until I looked at Goodreads and it was like, yes, this is a sci-fi novel novel. This book had me confused. You'll learn throughout this video, I don't comprehend a lot of what I read. This book especially, it had just so many characters, so many different timelines. There was a lot going on that it took me maybe half the book to finally piece together, like, okay, this is part of this timeline, that's part of the other timeline. Throughout all of that, the author weaved in a story, and that story is Cloud Cuckoo Land. This book talks a lot about connection and how a story connects people throughout time and space, and it really talks a lot about like human nature and human behavior, and deals with loss and the ugly part of being a human. The storytelling in this book and the fact that it was a story about a story, it was a very interesting read. Like I said, it took me half of the book to understand what was going on. Shout out to one of my book club members for not only recommending me this book, but also explaining the things I didn't understand, and also for giving me the idea to create this video. I give credit where credit is due. She told me to read this and also answered every stupid question I had of like,
who is this character again? What do they do?
My favorite character is Trusty Friend, and that's all I'm gonna say. No spoilers. I love Trusty Friend. Near and dear to my heart. Like, I just think that this book is perfect for someone who really likes the story of connection, who likes art, who likes very good storytelling. This book has a lot of characters and it has a lot of different timelines, so if that's not for you, then I wouldn't recommend it. But if you do like a complex book, it's all interlinked, then this book is for you. Like I said this in my superlatives video, which if you haven't watched it, feel free to do so. I could imagine the author just like having a map and kind of drawing out different webs of like, oh, that's how this character is going to connect to this character. And this is something that I want to do, will likely not do it. I would love to just like read this book in order of the characters, of like just reading one character's story at a time and then the next, and see how that kind of intertwines, because I feel like that would lead to a deeper understanding of what's happening in this novel, although it will spoil it, and that's not the fun of reading. But I feel like, because now I know what happens, it's like, if I do that, will I like this book more? Will I like it less? Will I like the way it's laid out now? So this book, I rated a 4 out of 5. Pretty light on the sci-fi side. I feel like this is more like magical realism, and that is Cloud Cuckoo Land. The next book I'm going to talk about is Severance. I'll talk about all these books in my superlatives video. Severance, I gave the award of most overrated book because I saw this book a lot, but I saw the book a lot. Everyone said nice things about the book. It's not a bad book, don't get me wrong. I would say it's an aggressively average book. I can see how someone can enjoy it. The writing style is pretty plain. It's not like beautiful writing, like This Is How You Lose a Time War. It's not overly simplistic, but it's not overly complex. To preface this book came out before COVID happened, so a lot of people say that it predicted COVID. This book is about the main character who lives in a world where a plague happens, her story of not catching the disease and trying to find a way out. That's all I can really describe about the book without giving it away. The reason why I rated it above a 3 stars is because of its depiction of being an Asian immigrant and the life of an Asian immigrant, and the fact that I mentioned shark fin soup. Because COVID happened, at the time that I read this, it wasn't the escape that I wanted. It was a world that hit too close to home from the world that I wanted to get out of. All in all though, I would say a lot of people did like the book, so you might as well. And given the past 3-4 years, it's not a difficult book to comprehend anymore. If that sounds interesting to you, I would say like I would recommend it. Take all of my opinions as you will. If you love any of these books and you're like, this is my favorite book ever, like I said, I'm not a huge sci-fi person. These are books that I would recommend for someone who's just like wants to lightly dip their feet into sci-fi novels. That said, last but not least, this is a book I just finished. Like literally, I just finished this a couple of hours ago, and that is The Memory Police. This book was on my TBR for likely over a year. This book was mentioned in my TBR video. This book has been taunting me, and because of this video idea, I was like, I will read this book because this is the last sci-fi book that I know of on my bookshelf. This book though actually genuinely surprised me. Premise is basically, this is a dystopian world where memories just disappear, things just disappear. When it disappears from like the island, it also disappears from people's memories, and it follows a main character who decides to hide someone in her basement and kind of talks through the story of her trying to remember things and what it means to have a soul. Because I'm someone who is genuinely terrified of forgetting things and losing her memory, and I'm someone whose personality is deeply rooted in nostalgia, this book kind of struck a chord for me because I'm genuinely terrified of forgetting things. This book talks about forgetting like mundane things like birds, hats, ribbons. It's the little things in life for me make it worth living. If birds just disappeared, like I literally on my walk today saw this blue jay that I was like, wow, that's a really pretty bird. Like, and it's just like the little things in life. When I read this book, I feel like I could feel the color draining from the world that it was in. That's exactly how I feel it would feel like if I were to slowly just like lose my memories. I would just feel like the world is not as bright or vibrant as it once was. I will say that I don't think I understood a lot of like the nuances in this book, but I don't think I needed to in order to like it. For me, this book just made me think and appreciate all of the little things and the fact that I can remember things. The only thing I didn't really like about this book was the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of world building, which isn't a big con for me because as you can tell from like my review of This Is How You Lose the Time War, I don't really understand world building stuff. That's on me. I should have improved my reading comprehension skills. Funny enough, that was my lowest score on all my standardized tests. There was a couple of times in this book where I was just like, I wonder how this world got here, what the rules are, all of that, and that was just never discussed. It was discussed of like, here's what the world is like right now. Don't know how it got there, don't know anything about it. Overall, I rated this book a 4 out of 5, and I would recommend it. This book is very much a dystopian novel, sci-fi type book. People say that this book is like 1984 mixed with Diary of Anne Frank. I haven't read the Diary of Anne Frank or 1984, even though that was required reading in school. Like I said, reading comprehension was the lowest score for me, and that's because I just didn't read in high school. Look at me now. My English teachers, look at me now. This book definitely struck a chord with me. If you're like me and you love nostalgia and you're terrified of forgetting things, this book is for you. Those are all of the sci-fi books that I have read recently. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got some recommendations of introduction to sci-fi books. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to and you haven't already. If you have any recommendations for lightly science fiction books, feel free to leave them in the comments. I may read them, I may not. I make no promises on this channel. If you're wondering, I did not color coordinate because I don't know what color a sci-fi book would be. I was thinking like blue or black, but I wore blue in my last hockey video and I can't wear the same things. Otherwise, everyone will be like, she recorded this on the same day, when realistically, I just wear the same things. I do have blue on my nails, so maybe that counts. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got recommendations. I hope you understand more sci-fi novels than I do, because clearly from this video, you can tell that I didn't understand half of the books that I read. That rings true. I don't understand half of the books that I do read, except for romances, because you know, I love me some love. I don't know what I was talking about for half of this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye! What are these fingers doing? Whoa. I don't get it. I literally am gonna rip my earring out of my ear hole. They're like, this is the best book I've ever written. Damn, if you wrote this book and you're watching this video, I'm on a different level. Why? What am I talking about?